The rain-slicked streets of San Francisco gleamed under the sodium lamps like veins of molten silver. And Morgan Hale stood at the edge of the rooftop terrace, her fingers white-knuckled around a champagne flute she had not touched. Below, the city pulsed with indifferent life, cars slicing through puddles, distant laughter spilling from a bar. But up here, in the penthouse area of her own empire, the world felt like it was holding its breath. Then her phone buzzed once, sharply, and the screen lit up with a name that cracked the night open. Alex. She answered before the second vibration, her voice a threadbare whisper against the wind. Tell me you're not calling to say goodbye. But Alex's silence was the blade. And when she finally spoke, it was not with the warmth of their stolen mornings in bed, but with the cold precision of a question Morgan had buried deeper than her secrets. Morgan, who the hell is Elena Voss? And why does every thread in your company's origin story lead back to her grave? Morgan's empire had risen from the fog of the Bay Area like a phoenix forged in silicon and smoke. HaleTech, a gleaming monolith of innovation that promised to revolutionize how the world connected, neural interfaces that bridged minds across distances. Apps that anticipated your desires before you voiced them. 35. She was the darling of venture capital. Her face on the covers of Wired and Forbes. Her TED Talks dissected in boardrooms from Palo Alto to Park Avenue. She had built it all on the unyielding belief that reinvention was not just possible, but necessary, that the past was a draft you crumpled and tossed into the recycling bin of history. But as she paced the terrace now, the city lights blurring through unshed tears, Morgan wondered if the fortune she had amassed, hundreds of millions in valuation, a net worth that insulated her from the chill of ordinary winters, had been worth the hollow echo it left in her chest. Started, as these things often do, with a theft not of money, but of self. 20 years earlier, in the sticky heat of a New Orleans summer, Morgan, then plain old Maggie Hale, daughter of a jazz club bartender and a schoolteacher who dreamed of escape, had discovered Elena Voss in the backstacks of Tulane University's library. Elena was everything Maggie was not: poised, brilliant, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that held the depth of the Mississippi at dusk. She was a computer science prodigy, scribbling algorithms on napkins during late-night study sessions, her laughter a melody that cut through the drone of fluorescent lights. Maggie fell first, hard and without apology, in the way only 19-year-olds can. Stolen kisses in the quad under magnolia trees heavy with blooms, whispered promises exchanged over shared cigarettes on fire escapes. But Elena's mind was her true lover, a labyrinth of code that Maggie could only admire from afar. Watch this, Elena would say, her fingers flying over a battered laptop, pulling up prototypes of what would become the backbone of neural networking, ideas so ahead of their time they bordered on prescience. Maggie listened, memorized, absorbed. When Elena's family pulled her back to Chicago after a scholarship fell through, the severance was brutal. A final night in Elena's cramped dorm, bodies tangled in a desperate bid to imprint memory onto skin, and then silence. Elena's letters stopped coming. Her phone disconnected. Maggie, adrift in the humid aftermath, took the notebooks Elena had left behind, filled with sketches and equations, and carried them like talismans to California. San Francisco swallowed her whole. She changed her name on a whim, shedding Maggie like an ill-fitting coat, and dove into the startup scene with a ferocity born of loss. HaleTech was born in a garage in Oakland, funded by a single pitch to a skeptical angel investor. Imagine connecting not just devices, but souls. The lie was subtle at first, a borrowed equation here, a rephrased hypothesis there. By the time the first patent cleared, The theft felt like evolution. Elena's ghost haunted the code. But Morgan told herself it was homage, not appropriation. Success came in waves. Seed rounds ballooned to series. Hires flooded in, diverse faces from across the globe. A rainbow coalition of coders and dreamers, and Morgan rose with them. Her wardrobe shifting from thrift store jeans to bespoke suits. Her apartment from a studio in the Mission to a loft overlooking the Golden Gate. Yet the nights were the worst. Alone in that loft, with its walls lined in abstract art that cost more than her childhood home, Morgan would pour bourbon neat and scroll through old emails, searching for Elena's trace. She had tried once, years ago, to find her, hired a PI who came back empty-handed, muttering about privacy laws and dead ends. Elena had vanished into the ether, leaving Morgan to build her fortress alone. Until Alex. They met at a gala in the Presidio, under chandeliers that dripped light like honey. Morgan was there to schmooze, Alex to report for the Bay Chronicle, a scrappy indie paper that prided itself on holding the tech titans accountable. Alex Rivera was 32. With heritage woven from Mexican roots and a Midwestern sensibility. Olive skin. Cropped black hair that framed her face like a frame. And brown eyes that saw through bullshit like it was rice paper. She wore a simple emerald dress that hugged her athletic frame, remnant of college soccer days, and carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had clawed her way up from community college night classes. Their eyes locked across the room during a toast to innovation. And Morgan felt it like a current, the pull of recognition. As if Alex had been waiting in the wings of her life all along. "You're the one turning thoughts into gold," Alex said later, sidling up with a glass of red. Her voice laced with that dry humor that masked sharper intent. Morgan laughed. Too easily. And countered with, "And you're the one who'll write the exposé when it all crumbles." Flirtation sparked into conversation. Then into a walk along the fog-shrouded path, where Alex confessed her own reinventions, fleeing a conservative family in Kansas City for the city's embrace, finding community in the Castro's bars and bookstores. By dawn, they were in Morgan's loft, shedding clothes and pretenses. Alex's touch was deliberate, exploratory, fingers tracing the scars of old doubts along Morgan's ribs, lips brushing whispers of "stay with me" against her collarbone. It was the first time in years Morgan had let someone in. Not just her bed but the corners of her mind where the lies festered. They built a rhythm. Mornings tangled in sheets scented with coffee and salt air. Evenings debating ethics over takeout from the taqueria on Valencia. Alex challenged her. Not with accusations but questions that peeled back layers. What drives you? Really? The code? Or the escape? Morgan dodged. Deflected with stories of boardroom battles and late-night hacks. But Alex's persistence was a gentle siege. She started digging. Innocently at first, for a profile piece on female founders in tech. Interviews with early employees. Dives into public records. Morgan noticed the laptop left open on the kitchen island, tabs glowing with archived patents and faded news clippings. But love, she reasoned, was a blindfold worth wearing. Until that call on the terrace, when the fog lifted and the truth loomed like the bridge's shadow. She sank into a wicker chair, the champagne spilling forgotten onto the stone. Elena Vos. The name hadn't crossed her lips in a decade, but it echoed now like a verdict. Alex had found her, not alive, but in death notices from 2012. A quiet obituary in a Chicago community paper. Elena Vos, 34. Beloved daughter and sister. Lost to ovarian cancer after a valiant fight. No mention of groundbreaking work. No nod to the mind that had seeded an industry. Just gone. As if she had never burned so brightly. Morgan's hands trembled as she typed a response, thumbs hovering over the screen. We need to talk. In person. My place. Now. The dots danced. Then, I'm already on my way. The elevator dinged 20 minutes later, and Alex stepped out like a storm front, rain-damp hair curling at her temples, coat slung over one arm, eyes stormy with betrayal. She didn't speak, just crossed the room and stopped inches from Morgan, close enough to feel the heat of her anger. Start talking, Alex said, voice low, frayed at the edges. Because the woman I love built her life on someone else's grave. And I need to know if there's anything left that's real. Morgan met her gaze, the city lights fracturing in her vision. And for the first time, the fortress walls trembled. It wasn't a grave I built on, she said, the words tasting like ash. It was a promise I broke. And as the rain hammered the glass, the unraveling began. Not with screams or shattered stemware, but with the quiet click of a door unlocking, truth spilling out like the flood they had held back too long. Alex's apartment in the No Valley was a sanctuary of organized chaos, bookshelves sagging under the weight of dog-eared paperbacks and investigative tomes, a corkboard pinned with clippings from exposés that had toppled lesser tycoons, and a kitchen table scarred from countless nights of typing until her fingers cramped. It smelled of sage from the smudged sticks she burned to clear the air after tough stories. And tonight, as she paced its worn oak floors, that scent mingled with the sharp tang of her own unraveling nerves. Morgan sat on the edge of the sagging leather couch, elbows on knees, staring at the frayed rug as if it held the script for her confession. The drive from the Presidio had been silent, the wipers slapping a metronome to the tension thickening between them like fog rolling in off the bay. I met her at Tulane, Morgan began, her voice steady but soft, the way one speaks to a spooked animal. Elena. She was light. The kind that makes you believe in futures you can't see yet. She traced the pattern of the rug with her toe. A navy Converse sneaker scuffed from warehouse parties in her early startup days. Alex leaned against the counter, arms crossed, her emerald dress now rumpled, the fabric clinging to her like a second skin of accusation. She wanted to hate this story, to let it fuel the fire of her righteous anger. But Morgan's vulnerability, the raw edge in her green eyes, the way her shoulders curved inward, tugged at the journalist in her. The lover who had mapped every curve of that body with reverence. Tell me everything, Alex said. Not unkindly, but with the precision of someone who knew half-truths were the real poison. She poured 2 mugs of chamomile from the kettle humming on the stove, sliding one across the table like an olive branch. Morgan accepted it, the steam curling up to ghost her face, and nodded. The telling took hours, unspooling like a reel of faded film, the library encounters, Elena's infectious passion for bridging human connection through code, the nights they spent dreaming of a world without isolation. She saw people as networks, Morgan said, a ghost of a smile flickering. Not nodes to exploit, but threads to weave stronger. The breakup had been a fracture, not a clean break. Elena's scholarship yanked by bureaucratic red tape, her family's pleas pulling her east to care for an ailing mother. Maggie Morgan had begged her to stay, to fight. But Elena's resolve was quiet steel. Go build it, she had said in their last embrace, pressing the notebook into Maggie's hands. For us. Make it mean something. Then she was gone. Avoid that Maggie filled with motion, the Greyhound to the West Coast, the name change in a dingy Reno courthouse, the relentless grind of coding in coffee shops until her eyes burned. Hailtech's genesis was a patchwork of ambition and desperation. Morgan pitched the core algorithm, Elena's algorithm, as her own, tweaking variables to mask the origins, filing patents under the Hail banner. The first investor, a grizzled VC named Harlan Brooks from Austin Transplants, bit hard. This could change everything. Kid. Seed money flowed. Prototypes hummed to life. And with each milestone, the lie calcified into legacy. Employees came aboard. Diverse hires like Jamal from Detroit, coding the UI with jazz-inflected flair. Priya from Bangalore, optimizing the neural pathways with mathematical poetry. Morgan mentored them fiercely, pouring Elena's ethos into team retreats in the Redwoods, where they bonded over bonfires and vulnerability circles. We're not just building tech, she'd say, voice carrying over the crackle of flames. We're building bridges. But the bridges were built on sand. As Hailtech scaled Series B at $50 million, offices in Chicago and New York, whispers started. A former intern, poached by a rival, leaked snippets to tech blogs. Hail's ideas feel familiar. Morgan quashed them with NDAs and charm offensives. But the guilt gnawed, a low hum beneath the applause. She dated sporadically women who saw the CEO, not the scavenger, but none lingered until Alex. With her unflinching gaze and the way she laughed at Morgan's terrible puns over dim sum. Alex listened now, mug cooling untouched. Her mind cataloging the threads, the patent dates aligning with Elena's dorm logs, the obituary's silence on her contributions. You stole her life, she said finally, the words landing like stones in still water. Morgan flinched, but didn't deny it. I stole her work. Yes. But not her life. Elena died before she could claim it. Cancer. Fast and cruel. I found out years later. Through a mutual friend on Facebook. Her voice cracked on the last word. And she set the mug down, hands clasping to still their shake. I thought, if I made it big, it would honor her. That the fortune would be ours. In some cosmic way. Alex crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling before her, hands on Morgan's knees. Close. The hurt in her eyes was a mirror, reflecting Alex's own scars from stories that had cost her relationships. Trust. Honor isn't built on erasure. Morgan. It's built on truth. She cupped Morgan's face, thumbs brushing the damp trails on her cheeks. I fell for you because you're fierce. Because you see the world as fixable. But this? It's a crack in the foundation. They made love that night on the couch. Urgent and tender. As if bodies could bridge the chasm words had carved. Alex's hands mapped the familiar terrain. The dip of Morgan's waist. The constellation of freckles across her chest. But there was a new layer. A hesitation that spoke of questions unanswered. Afterward, tangled in a throw blanket that smelled of lavender and ink, Alex traced lazy circles on Morgan's arm. We fixed this, she murmured into the dark. Together. But you have to let me in all the way. Morgan nodded against her shoulder. The weight of agreement settling like dew. Dawn crept in through the blinds, painting stripes across their skin. And for a moment, the city outside felt conquerable. They rose to coffee and plans. Alex would pause the profile. But not the digging. Morgan would reach out to Elena's family. Offer restitution anonymously at first. Felt like a pact. sealed in the steam of their mugs. But as Alex left for her shift at the Chronicle, kissing Morgan at the door with a fierceness that bordered on plea, the first fracture appeared. On the kitchen table, beside the dregs of chamomile, lay a printout Alex had left behind, a scanned page from Elena's notebook, equations Morgan recognized as the heart of her flagship app. Highlighted in yellow, a marginal note in Elena's looping script, for Maggie, our bridge to forever. Morgan's breath caught, the room tilting. She had never seen that page before. How had Alex found it? And why? In the quiet of this borrowed space, did it feel like the first lie uncovered was not hers, but the one she had told herself all along? The day unfolded in a haze of meetings, Hailteka's boardroom buzzing with projections for the next round, Jamal cracking jokes about neural implants turning them all into cyborg poets. But Morgan's mind wandered back to New Orleans, to magnolias and the girl who had taught her to dream. By afternoon, she slipped out early, driving the winding roads to Point Reyes, where the ocean crashed against cliffs like unanswered questions. She parked at a trailhead, hiked until her lungs burned, and sat on a boulder overlooking the surf, phone in hand. The number for Elena's sister, Nadia Voss, had come from the PI's old report, dusted off that morning. It rang twice before a voice answered. Warm but wary. Hello. Morgan's throat closed. This is an old friend of Elena's. From Tulane. I wanted to say I miss her. Silence stretched. Then Nadia. She talked about, Maggie. Said you were the one who made her believe in impossible things. Tears blurred the horizon. I want to make it right, Morgan whispered. Whatever that means. Nadia's reply was measured, laced with the grief of years. Start by telling her story. The real one. Back in the city, twilight painted the bridges in bruised purples, and Morgan returned to the loft to find Alex waiting. Takeout containers steaming on the counter, burritos from their favorite truck, a peace offering wrapped in foil. They ate cross-legged on the floor, knees touching. The conversation circling back to bridges, the ones Elena dreamed, the ones they were trying to mend. Laughter crept in, tentative, when Alex recounted a botched interview with a rival CEO, his toupee slipping mid-rant. You'd eat him alive, she said, nudging Morgan's foot. But as night deepened, the yellow highlighted page lay between them on the coffee table, a silent third. Alex had found it in a university archive. Digitized theses Elena had contributed to anonymously. It's beautiful, Alex said softly. Like her. Morgan nodded. The weight of it settling, not as accusation, but invitation. To rebuild. Perhaps from the ground up. Yet in the quiet hours after Alex slept, Morgan lay awake, staring at the ceiling's exposed beams. The fortune she had built glittered in the dark like fool's gold, and for the first time, she wondered if the woman she loved was not uncovering lies, but the truth she had been too afraid to claim. The Castro district thrummed with its Saturday rhythm, rainbow flags snapping in the breeze off Market Street, couples weaving arm-in-arm past cafes spilling laughter and the rich aroma of fresh-baked sourdough. Morgan and Alex had chosen a corner bistro for brunch, a spot tucked between a vintage bookstore and a muraled alley, where the windows fogged with the heat of bodies and the promise of ordinary joy. It was their ritual, this reclaiming of normalcy. Eggs Benedict for Alex, who savored the hollandaise like a guilty pleasure. An avocado toast for Morgan, minimalist as her moods those days, But today, the clink of silverware felt like percussion to an undercurrent of unease. The yellowed page from Elena's notebook folded in Alex's messenger bag like a talisman, or a ticking bomb. "You're staring at your plate like it's about to confess," Alex teased, her fork pausing mid-air, yolk dripping golden. Morgan forced a smile, the kind that reached her eyes only halfway, and speared a slice of tomato. "Just thinking about Nadia's email. The night before." After the call, Morgan had drafted a letter to Elena's sister, halting words about gratitude, regret, an offer to fund a scholarship in Elena's name through a HailTech foundation. Anonymous, first, but Nadia had replied swiftly, "No masks. Maggie. If you're ready to honor her, do it with your face forward." Alex nodded, her cropped hair catching the light filtering through potted ferns. "It's a start." But starts are messy. She reached across the table, lacing fingers with Morgan's, her touch a anchor in the swell of doubt. They had spent the week in this delicate dance, Alex pulling back from the Chronicle's editors, framing her research as personal interest to buy time, while Morgan audited old files, tracing Elena's fingerprints in the code. It was intimate work. Late nights hunched over laptops in the loft, Alex's head on Morgan's shoulder as they dissected lines of script that hummed with ghost-written genius. "See here," Morgan would murmur, highlighting a subroutine. "This is her flourish, the way she looped empathy into efficiency." Alex would hum agreement, her breath warm against Morgan's neck. And for stolen moments, the past felt like prologue, not Predator. But the city had eyes, and whispers traveled faster than fog. By Monday, HailTech's water cooler buzzed with speculation. A tech blog had dropped a teaser post, "The Hidden Roots of HailTech, a founder's forgotten muse?" No names, but the screenshot, a blurred scan of an early patent, reeked of insider leak. Morgan's assistant, Lena, a sharp-witted queer woman from Seattle with tattoos of binary code snaking her arms, flagged it during their morning stand-up. "Damage control?" she asked, tablet poised. Morgan waved it off, jaw tight. "Let it breathe. We'll address in the all-hands." The all-hands was a spectacle. HailTech's Oakland headquarters, a hive of glass walls and ergonomic pods. 200 souls gathered in the atrium under a kinetic sculpture of orbiting nodes. Morgan took the stage, microphone in hand, her black turtleneck and wide-leg pants a nod to Jobsian simplicity. "We've all heard the noise," she began, voice carrying clear and calm, the kind that quelled boardroom tempests. "And it's true, my foundation owes a debt to a brilliant mind I met long ago. Elena Voss wasn't just an influence. She was the spark." Gasps rippled. Then applause. Tentative at first, building as Morgan shared fragments. Not the theft. Not yet. But the inspiration. Late nights in Louisiana libraries. Dreams of connection born from shared solitude. Jamal stood after, mic in hand, his locks tied back with a bandana. "Boss, this is about owning it. We're with you." "Elena sounds like family," Priya nodded from the front row, her hijab a vibrant turquoise. The room exhaled, bonds tightening in the vulnerability. Back in her office, overlooking the bay's restless shimmer, Morgan sank into her chair, the adrenaline crash leaving her hollow. Alex texted then, "Heard about the talk. Proud. Dinner at mine, bring wine and that smile." Dinner was candlelit improvisation, pasta with heirloom tomatoes from the farmer's market, Red wine from a Napa vineyard Alex swore tasted like rebellion. They ate on the fire escape, legs dangling over the alley where cats yowled symphonies, the city a tapestry of neon and shadow below. "You did good today," Alex said, twirling linguine on her fork. Stepping into the light, Morgan leaned back against the railing, wineglass stem cool between fingers. "Feels like jumping without a net." Their knees brushed, a spark jumping the gap, and conversation flowed to lighter currents. Alex's latest pitch for a series on queer elders in the village, Morgan's half-baked idea for an Elena-inspired open-source project. Lips met in the warm glow, wine tanged and slow, hands rediscovering paths worn familiar. They migrated inside, to the bed with its mismatched pillows and the quilt Alex's abuela had sewn, bodies aligning in a rhythm that spoke forgiveness. Alex's fingers threaded through Morgan's hair, pulling just enough to elicit a gasp. Her voice husky. "You're mine." "Lies and all," Morgan arched, whispering back. "Then help me become whole." Morning brought the backlash. Harlan Brooks called at 7 a.m., his Texas drawl thick with gravel. "Maggie girl. What the hell? Investors are jittery. Talk of IP suits from Voskin." Morgan's stomach knotted as she dressed. Alex still asleep, curls fanned across the pillow like ink spills. The drive to Hailtech was a blur of podcasts on ethics and tech. But her mind replayed Nadia's words, "Your face forward." By noon, she was on a flight to Chicago impromptu. Ticket bought with miles. Alex seeing her off at SFO with a kiss that lingered like a vow. "Call when you land. We'll figure the rest." O'Hare was a crush of hurried souls, but Morgan navigated to a rental car, the Midwest flatlands unfolding like an old photograph. Nadia's address was in a Hyde Park brownstone, ivy-cloaked and echoing with the university's spires nearby. The door opened to a woman in her 40s, Elena's eyes in a face etched with quiet strength, her locks pulled into a crown. "Maggie Hale," Nadia said. Not a question. Stepping aside. The living room was a haven of warmth, photos of Elena on the mantel, laughing at proms and protests, shelves of engineering texts mingled with poetry by Audre Lorde. They talked over tea, steam rising like confessions. Nadia shared stories Morgan hadn't known. Elena's post-Tulane years, coding for nonprofits in Chicago's South Side, mentoring girls in STEM from underfunded schools. "She never stopped dreaming of that bridge," Nadia said, handing over a box, Elena's remaining notebooks, edges frayed from love. "But life, it derails." The cancer had come swift. Stage 4 by diagnosis. Elena choosing dignity over spectacle. Her final days in hospice with jazz on vinyl and family close. Morgan's voice broke when she offered the scholarship, public, named for Elena, funded by Hailtech stock. Nadia studied her. "Then, make it more. Tell her story and your success. Let the world know she built the spark." Tears fell unchecked. And in that shared grief, a bridge formed not of code, but flesh and memory. They hugged at the door. Nadia's embrace fierce. "Heal for her, Maggie. And for you." Back in San Francisco that night, Morgan collapsed into Alex's arms, the box clutched like a relic. Over takeout pho in the loft, she recounted it all. Alex listening with that reporter's poise masking the lover's ache. "This is redemption," Alex said, kissing her temple. "Messy, but real." They made plans. Press release code drafted. Open source release of Elena's core algorithms. a gala fundraiser for the scholarship. But as they scrolled patent revisions on the couch, a notification pinged from the Bay Chronicle's tip line. Forwarded to Alex. Anonymous source claims Hailtech founder forged docs to bury original creator. Voss family involved? Alex's face paled. Morgan's blood ran cold. The leak had deepened, roots twisting toward the heart. The leak spread like wildfire through dry chaparral, igniting forums and feeds from Hacker News to the Chronicle's comments section. By Tuesday, Hailtech ghost trended in the Bay Area. Skeptics and stands clashing in digital coliseums. Feminist icon or Frankenstein? One tweet sneered. Another countered. Women in tech get dragged for breathing. Give her grace. Morgan's inbox flooded. Pitches from PR firms. Cease and desist from Harlan's lawyers. A voicemail from Nadia. Whatever comes. Stand tall. Elena would. She played it on loop during her run along the Embarcadero, the bay's choppy waters mirroring her turmoil, salt spray stinging like accusations. Alex was in the thick of it, her editor demanding drafts despite her protests. "This is bigger than us," Tom barked over speakerphone in her No Valley kitchen. Morgan frozen in the doorway with grocery bags, lemons for the gin rickeys they craved after long days. Public interest trumps personal. Rivera. Alex hung up with a curse, slamming her laptop shut, the corkboard clippings trembling. He's right. But it feels like betrayal. Morgan set the bags down, drawing her into an embrace that smelled of newsprint and resolve. Write it fair. I'll give you the exclusive, everything unfiltered. The interview stretched over 2 evenings in the loft, recorder whirring like a confessional cicada. Morgan spoke without script, voice weaving through the humid haze of her youth, the thrift store dresses in New Orleans, Elena's hand in hers at a queer prom under crepe paper stars, the notebook's weight in her backpack as she crossed state lines. "I didn't set out to steal," she admitted, perched on the windowsill, city lights etching her silhouette. "I set out to survive. And in surviving, I erased her." Alex probed gently. "When did the guilt become unbearable?" Her eyes holding Morgan's, a lifeline in the interrogation. Transcripts piled up. Alex's notes a mosaic of empathy and ethics. They paused for breaths. Walks in Golden Gate Park, where eucalyptus whispered secrets. Hands clasped against the chill. Dinners at tiny spots in the Mission. Tamales steaming as they debated justice, restorative versus punitive. "You could walk away," Alex said one night, over trace leches that dripped sweetness. "Settle with the family. Rebrand." Morgan shook her head. Fork tracing patterns in the cake. "No more running. This is my bridge to cross." Hailtech reeled. Jamal rallied the team for a hackathon, Elena's Echo. They dubbed it, releasing modules of her algorithms as open source, crediting her in the commits. Priya designed the repo's banner, a neural web blooming like a lotus. The board convened via Zoom, Harlan's face ready on screen. "Risky. Hail. Valuation dips 5% already." Morgan leaned in, unflinching. "Or it soars. Authenticity sells." Votes swung her way, bolstered by millennial VCs who preached conscious capitalism. The gala loomed, a fundraiser for the Voss Scholarship at the De Young Museum, under its copper dome glowing like a beacon. Invites went out: tech peers, queer activists from SF Pride. Nadia's flight booked. Morgan and Alex shopped for dresses in Hayes Valley boutiques, laughter bubbling as Alex twirled in sapphire silk. "You clean up dangerous," Morgan quipped, pulling her close in the dressing room mirror. lips brushing necks. The intimacy felt reclaimed, bodies sinking in a dance of rediscovery, slow mornings in bed. Alex's laughter vibrating against Morgan's skin as fingers explored with renewed wonder. But shadows lengthened. A second leak hit midweek. Forged emails, purportedly from Morgan to early investors, downplaying Elena's role. Forgeries. She swore watermarks off. Phrasing too pat, but the damage stuck like tar. Protests flickered outside Hailteca's doors. A dozen voices chanting credit or quit, rainbow signs bobbing. Lena coordinated security. Her voice steady. We've got your back, boss. Inside, Morgan addressed them from the lobby, megaphone in hand. I hear you. And I'm listening. Join us at the gala, let's build, not burn. Alex's article dropped Thursday. A 5,000-word opus in the Chronicle. The spark she stole, Morgan Hale and the woman who lit her path. It was unflinching, detailing the appropriation, the silence, the human cost, but laced with nuance. Elena's joy in sharing, Morgan's path to atonement, the broader sins of a tech bro culture that chews up women of color. Reactions cascaded. Shares from Reshma Sajani. Backlash from edgelord podcasts. Alex's phone blew up. Offers from The Atlantic. Death threats she deleted without flinching. That night, in the loft, they celebrated survival with bourbon on the terrace. The bridges lights a string of fireflies. You wrote me alive, Morgan said. Clinking glasses. Her free hand tracing Alex's jaw. Alex's eyes shimmered. I wrote us forward. The kiss ignited. Urgent against the railing. Clothes shedding in a trail to the bedroom. Skin on skin. They moved with a ferocity born of fire. Alex pinning Morgan's wrists. Whispering mind like a mantra. Morgan yielding with gasps that echoed off the beams. It was reclamation. Raw and reverent. Bodies affirming what words had bruised. Nadia arrived Friday. Her presence a grounding force. They met at a cafe in North Beach. Steam from cappuccinos mingling with stories. The article. It's healing, Nadia said. Her smile tentative. Elena would have fought for this, for you. Morgan pressed the scholarship check into her hand. Seed for 10 girls. Full rides to STEM programs. Her light. Amplified. The gala night descended like velvet. The DeYoung hummed. Chandeliers casting prisms. Gowns swirling in a sea of sequins in solidarity. Morgan wore midnight blue. Off-shoulder silk that bared the curve of her collarbone. Alex. Emerald velvet hugging her form. Arm linked through hers. Nadia spoke first. Voice carrying. My sister dreamed of connections that heal divides. Tonight, we honor that. Applause thundered as Morgan took the stage. Elena's notebook open like scripture. I built a fortune on silence. Now, I build a legacy on truth. Cheers erupted. But in the crowd's fringe, a figure lingered, tall, shadowed, eyes locked on Morgan with intent. Harlan. Arrival? The night blurred into toasts and dances. Alex's hand warm at her waist. But as confetti rained, Morgan's phone vibrated. Unknown number. Text Stark, the real forgery isn't yours. Watch your back. Heart pounding. She scanned the room. Alex's brow furrowing at her side. The celebration tasted of ash. The bridge they had crossed trembling underfoot. The anonymous text lingered like a splinter under Morgan's skin. The gala's euphoria curdling into paranoia as she and Alex navigated the DeYoung's marble halls. Champagne flutes sweating in their hands. Laughter echoed from clusters of donors, queer philanthropists in tailored tuxes, tech wives with diamond chokers, but Morgan's gaze darted, tracing silhouettes against the exhibit lights. Probably a troll, Alex murmured, her thumb stroking Morgan's knuckles, but her reporter's instinct sharpened, eyes scanning with her. Nadia, radiant in emerald linen that echoed Alex's gown, joined them near a Calder mobile, its reds and blues twisting lazily. "Everything all right?" she asked, sensing the shift. Morgan forced a nod, pocketing the phone. Just the ghosts playing tricks. They posed for photos, the three women arm in arm. A tableau of resilience, flashes popping like distant gunfire. The night wound down with speeches wrapping in applause. The scholarship fund hitting 6 figures before dessert plates cleared. In the cab back to the loft, windows fogged against the chill. Alex's head on Morgan's shoulder, Nadia regaling them with Elena's tales. She once hacked a dorm vending machine for free snacks, called it equity engineering. Laughter bubbled. A brief bomb. But the text burned. Sleep came fitful. Alex's warmth a tether as Morgan tossed. Dream splicing code with bayou vines. Dawn broke gray. Rain pattering the skylight. And they rose to coffee laced with cardamom, Nadia's touch. Her last morning before the flight home. Over omelets fluffy with feta. Plans solidified. Expand the Echo Hackathon nationwide. Partner with HBCUs for VOS cohorts. "You're weaving a net," Nadia said, hugging Morgan tight at the door. "Don't let it snag." Her cab vanished into the mist, leaving the loft quieter, heavier. Alex dove into the threat, her laptop a fortress on the kitchen island. IP trace bounces off VPNs, could be anyone. Morgan paced, bare feet cold on the hardwood. Harlan's been cagey. Or that intern who jumped ship last year. Paranoia festered through the day, Morgan canceling a pitch in Austin, delegating to Priya, who handled it with grace. Her voice on speaker, "We've got the momentum. Ride it." But isolation bred doubt. Morgan scrolled old emails. Elena's archive threads from Tulane servers. Words like "build boldly" mocking her now. By afternoon, Alex uncovered a lead. The text phrasing matched a string from a defunct forum. Tech Truthers, a hive of disgruntled ex-employees. One name pops, Derek Lang. Your first CFO hire. Sued for harassment. Settled quietly. Morgan's blood chilled. Derek, with his slick grin and wandering hands, fired after Priya's complaint. He swore revenge. They reported it to SFPD. A bored detective taking notes. Stalkers love drama. We'll monitor. Evening brought fragile normalcy. A film at the Castro Theater. Portrait of a lady on fire. Its sapphic gaze a mirror to their own. In the velvet seats, hands entwined, Morgan leaned into Alex. The screen's flicker softening edges. "Like us," she whispered during the painter's bold strokes. Alex squeezed. "But with better endings." Post-credits. They wandered to Visidero's neon-lit streets, stopping for gelato, pistachio for Alex, stracciatella for Morgan, spoons clinking as they shared bites, laughter chasing shadows. Back home, intimacy unfurled slow, deliberate. Alex's lips tracing Morgan's spine in the lamplight, hands cupping hips with a tenderness that ached. "I love you through the storm," Alex breathed, bodies merging in a tide of sighs and skin. Morgan clung, whispering vows against her throat, the act a bulwark against the encroaching dark. But dawn delivered the blow. Harlan called at 6 a.m. Voice clipped, Board emergency. Your truth play tanked us. Investors pulling out. The Zoom was a gauntlet. Suits from New York droning valuations down 20%. Whispers of lawsuits from Elena's estate. Nadia had consulted a lawyer. Precautionary. Fiduciary breach, one accused. Morgan fought. Voice steel. This is evolution, not erosion. Give us the runway. Votes teetered. Harlan's tie askew as he brokered. 6 months. Prove the pivot. Relief was Pyrrhic. Morgan emerged drained, collapsing onto the couch where Alex waited. Arms open. We'll bootstrap if we must, Alex said. Fingers combing chestnut waves. You're more than the fortune. They spent the day cocooned, reading Audre Lorde aloud, napping in sun patches. The world reduced to their orbit. But as twilight bled orange across the bay, another text pinged. Derek says hi. Your bridge burns tonight. Panic surged. Morgan bolted up, scanning news alerts. Hailtech servers compromised. Code leaking to dark web repositories, not Elena's, but proprietary neural maps. Client data exposed. He's in, she gasped. Laptop flying open. Alex called contacts at cybersecurity firms, her voice calm amid chaos. Firewalls held, but the damage rippled. Clients like a Chicago health co-op threatening breach suits. They traced it to Derek's IP in Reno, tipping off authorities. By midnight, feds raided his motel, hauling servers in spite. Relief washed in waves, but exhaustion clung. Curled on the couch, Alex's head in lap, Morgan stroked her hair. I almost lost everything. Alex looked up. Eyes fierce. You didn't. We didn't. Yet in the quiet, Morgan felt the shift, the fortune crumbling, but something purer rising. A call from Priya confirmed. Team intact. Echo forking wildly online. Coders crediting Elena in commits. We're unbreakable, Priya said. Morning brought Nadia. Saw the hack. Proud of you both. And with her words, Morgan glimpsed the horizon, not a fortress, but a field. Open and vast. The breach's aftermath draped San Francisco in a shroud of scrutiny. Headlines blaring Hailtech hack, fortune's folly or fortuitous reckoning. From the Chronicle to coastal rags. Morgan's days blurred into war rooms. Hailtech's conference suite, a bunker of whiteboards scrawled with breach timelines. Legal pads thick with affidavits. Derek Lang's arrest dominated feeds. Mugshot pale and petulant. Charges piling like indictments, cyber intrusion, extortion, defamation. He targeted you for the payout, the detective grunted over coffee at a Presida Park kiosk. Steam rising as Alex scribbled notes. Thought the Voss drama would soften you up. Morgan nodded. The park's murals, vibrant murals of Chicano heroes, a stark contrast to her fraying edges. It almost did. Alex's hand found hers under the table. Squeeze grounding. They had become a unit. Seamless. Alex fielding press. Morgan steering the ship. Nights were sanctuaries, the loft's kitchen alive with experiments. Alex's abuelita recipes yielding pozole that simmered soul deep. Morgan chopping onions through tears that were half catharsis. The pivot accelerated. With investor jitters, Hailtech leaned into open source. Elena's algorithms the cornerstone of a new platform. FOSLink, free neural tools for marginalized creators, educators in rural Montana, artists in Austin's queer collectives. Jamal led the beta. His updates buzzing. Uptake's insane, schools in Detroit integrating it for virtual lit circles. Priya's designs bloomed, interfaces intuitive as breath. Morgan poured herself in, coding late with the team, her fingers rediscovering joy in the lines Elena had first sketched. Alex's series launched, Bridges Unbuilt, Women Erased in Silicon Valley, spotlighting not just Elena, but Priya's overlooked patents, a trans engineer's sideline VR sim. It hit like a tremor. Panels at TechCrunch disrupt debating ethical IP, queer orgs rallying with petitions. Backlash stung, trolls doxing Alex's handles, Harlan's grumbles over conference calls, but solidarity swelled. A Vermont co-op offering remote office space. Louisiana nonprofits partnering for VOS cohorts. Intimacy deepened in the cracks. One stormy evening, power flickering, they lit candles on the terrace, rain sheeting the glass. Alex slow danced Morgan across the rug, vinyl spinning Nina Simone's husky ache. "You're my constant," Alex murmured, lips grazing earlobe. Morgan pulled her closer, hands sliding under silk. The dance dissolving into heat, bodies pressing urgent, breath sinking in the candle glow. It was worship. Alex's tongue tracing collarbones, Morgan's nails raking backs, climaxes crashing like waves on Baker Beach. But fractures spidered. Nadia visited again, this time for a Chicago pop-up of the Echo Hackathon. Elena's notebooks displayed like relics in a pop-up gallery. "It's beautiful," she breathed, tracing a page. "Over deep dish at Lou Malnati's," she confided. "Lawyer says we could sue IP reversion." Morgan's fork paused, cheese stretching. "Do it. If it's right." Nadia searched her face. "Healing isn't erasure. It's amendment." The decision hung, a sword over their fragile peace. "Back west." The board pressed. "Monetize Voslink or fold." Morgan countered with metrics, user growth 300%. Partnerships with SF's GLBT Historical Society. Harlan relented, but warned, "Heart's noble. Hail." Wallet's king. Doubt crept. Nights when Morgan stared at the ceiling, Alex's snores a lullaby against her racing pulse. A turning point came in Oregon, a retreat in Portland's forest fringes. Hailteca's core team unplugging amid Douglas firs. Bonfires crackled. Stories shared. Jamal's Detroit roots. Priya's Diwali coatings. Morgan spoke of Elena unvarnished. The love. The loss. The lift. "She taught me connection isn't conquest." Tears fell freely. The group encircling her in hugs. Alex's pride shining like fireflies. Return brought escalation. Derek's trial loomed. His plea for bail denied. But depositions dredged old wounds. Testimony from exes alleging Morgan's ruthless ambition masked deeper deceits. Tabloids twisted it. Lesbian tycoons tangled loves, outing intimacies Morgan guarded fierce. Alex shielded her. Statements to Variety affirming, "Love isn't the story. Truth is." One night, post-epo, they escaped to Big Sur, Highway 1 winding cliffs to a cliffside cabin, ocean roaring below. No laptops. Just walks on pebble beaches, collecting heart rocks. "Remember our first fight?" Alex asked. "Skipping stones." Morgan laughed. "The one over pineapple on pizza?" Splashes punctuated memories, leading to lovemaking on driftwood soft sands. Sunset gilding their union slow, sacred. Seals against the tide. Yet the tide rose. Voslink hit a snag, a bug echoing Elena's original flaw. Crashing sessions for users in low bandwidth zones, rural queers, indigenous coders. Backlash forums lit. Hypocrite's legacy? Morgan Devin. Sleepless fixes with Priya. Alex beta testing from coffee shops. Resolution came dawn lit. Code stabilized. But exhaustion etched lines. In the quiet after, Morgan confessed to Alex, curled on the cabin porch. I fear I'm not enough, the fortune's gone. The lies linger. Alex cupped her face. Fierce. You're everything. We're the bridge. A call from Nadia sealed it. No suit. Amends over amends. Relief flooded. But as they drove south, Morgan's phone lit. Harlan. Deals off. We're selling. The empire teetered. But in the rear view, Morgan saw not ruin, but release. Harlan's ultimatum landed like a gut punch. The conference call's echo chamber amplifying his drawl. Voslink's bleeding cash. Hail. We've got a buyer, big farm out of Boston. 200 mil on the table. Morgan's office, once a command center of lucite and leather, felt like a cage. The bay's fog pressing against windows like uninvited witness. Priya and Jamal flanked her on the Zoom. Faces taut. Alex waited in the hall. Her presence a silent bolstering. It's not for sale, Morgan said. Voice even as her pulse thundered. Not the soul of it. Harlan chuckled. Dry as dust. Soul don't pay dividends. Darlin'. Votes tomorrow. The day dissolved into strategy. Huddles in the atrium. Whiteboards mapping counteroffers. Crowdfund Voslink independent. Spin it off as non-profit. Jamal sketched equity models. His locks swinging. Community-owned. Like Detroit co-ops. Priya nodded. Hijab pinned with a neural pin. We've got the users. Let them invest. Alex contributed angles. Her journalists I spotting grants for ethical AI. Hope flickered. But fear gnawed. The fortune she built. Now a phantom. Slipping through fingers like bay mist. Nights blurred into vigils. Alex pulled her from the grind, dragging to Bernal Heights ladders, steep paths winding to views of twinkling sprawl. Breathe, she'd say. Back against chain link. Lips meeting in salt-kissed urgency. One dusk. They lingered. Hands roaming under layers. The city a voyeur below. Fight for it, Alex gasped. Morgan's fingers deft. Drawing moans that mingled with wind. It was defiance. Desire as armor. The vote loomed. Bored a hydra of remote faces. New York financiers in crisp collars. Austin VCs nursing IPAs. Morgan presented. Projections for Voslink's social ROI. Testimonials from users. A trans teen in Montana coding her transition story. A New Orleans teacher bridging Delta divides. This isn't transaction, she urged. It's transformation. Silence stretched. Then Harlan. Sentimental. But numbers. They sing. Votes trickled. Aye for sale. Nay for hold. Tied. Harlan's gavel falling. Abstain. Recess till morning. Insomnia gripped. Morgan wandered the loft at 2 a.m. Elena's notebook open on the counter. Pages glowing under pendant light. Alex stirred. Padding in robe-clad. Enfolding from behind. We'll rebuild smaller. Truer. They talked till gray light dreams of a boutique firm. Consulting for queer-led startups. Alex's byline partnering her pitches. Dawn lovemaking sealed it. Gentle. Exploratory. Alex's whispers weaving spells of sufficiency. Morning brought the tiebreaker, Nadia, invited as advisor, her vote proxy from ethical stake. For Elena, she said on feed. Nay. The board fractured. Harlan conceding. Fine. Bootstrap it. But no more heroics. Relief crashed. Team erupting in cheers via Slack. Emojis of bridges and rainbows flooding channels. Pivot meant purge. Layoffs loomed. But Morgan fought humane severance with Voslink access. Outplacement to allies. Faces haunted. Lena's tearful goodbye hug. You changed the game. Priya stayed. For her designs evolving Voslink into a constellation app. Notes for mental health check-ins. Tailored for LGBTQ plus isolation. Alex's series wrapped. A finale on reclamation's cost. Interviewing Morgan Raw. Fortune was the lie. Loves the fortune. It aired podcast style. Downloads spiking. Invites to queer tech summits in Austin and Chicago. They traveled light first to Vermont. A writer's retreat in the Greens, where Alex drafted her book proposal. Morgan guest lectured on ethical code. Evenings by wood stoves. Bodies entwined under quilts. Stories swapped like kindling. Back in the Bay. Tensions simmered. Derek's trial unfolded in federal court. His defense painting Morgan as ruthless seductress, twisting their brief fling into motive. Testimony stung. His voice sneering. She used me. Like she used Voss. Alex testified fierce. Dismantling. Obsession. Not evidence. Verdict guilty. 10 years. Outside court. Protesters dwindled to supporters. Signs reading justice for Sparks. But personal storms brewed. Alex's editor pushed expansion. Go national. Expose more. Straining her freelance pivot to full-time advocacy. I want mornings with you. Not deadlines. She confessed over ramen in Japantown. Steam veiling hurt. Morgan cupped her hand. Then let's make them. They negotiated boundaries. Alex joining Hailtech part-time as ethics lead. Her insights sharpening Voslink's guardrails. A milestone gala in the Presidio marked 1 year. Voslink at 10,000 users. Scholarships awarded to 20 girls, diverse as the Delta. From Louisiana bayous to Oregon trails. Morgan spoke. Alex at her side. Nadia beaming from front row. Bridges aren't built alone, she said. Voice steady. Toasts flowed. Dances swirled, Jamal twirling Priya. Laughter cascading. Midnight found them on the terrace. Stars pricking fog. We made it, Alex whispered. Forehead to Morgan's. The kiss deepened. Hands urgent. Slipping away to a shadowed alcove. Lovemaking under stars fierce. Fring. A testament to survival. Forever Sarcode, Morgan breathed. Bodies shuddering in unison. Yet as confetti settled. A quiet reckoning, the fortune gone. But freedom won. Morgan felt lighter. The weight of lies lifted. Love's gravity sufficient. The Presidio Gala's afterglow lingered like the scent of eucalyptus on a coastal breeze. But Morgan and Alex chased it southward. A road trip stitched from whimsy and need. A loop through Big Sur's crags to Monterey's canneries. Then inland to Napa's vine-laced hills. The hybrid hummed along Highway 1. Windows cracked to salt air. Alex's playlist shuffling Joan Baez's folk laments with Janelle Monáe's anthems. Our victory lap, Alex declared. Feet on deck. Her linen shirt unbuttoned just enough to tease. Morgan grinned. Hand on her thigh. The road unspooling like thread from Elena's notebook. Stops were sacraments. Picnics on Jade Cove. Hunting jade pebbles that gleamed sea green. Oyster shacks in Morro Bay. Briny bites chased with local Sauvignon. Evenings in roadside motels. Neon buzzing vacancy, where they claimed king beds with the fervor of newlyweds. Alex's laughter echoing off paneled walls as Morgan kissed trails down her abdomen. Bodies arching in the glow of lava lamps. "You're my horizon," Alex gasped. Fingers tangled in chestnut waves. Climaxes rolling like distant thunder. Napa brought indulgence. A B&B in St. Helena. Canopied bed overlooking Cab Sauv Rose. They toured vineyards at dawn. Baskets heavy with grapes. Juice staining lips purple. Over lunch, charcuterie under arbors, talk turned tender. Futures sketched in hypotheticals. "A place up north?" Alex mused, tracing Morgan's palm. "Portland or Eugene Rain. Books. Space to breathe." Morgan nodded. Heart swelling. "With a studio for you. A workshop for me." Voslink remote. Team scattered like seeds. Reality intruded gently. Emails from Priya on user spikes. A cohort in Chicago's Bronzeville launching mental health nodes. Jamal's pitch for Austin expansion. Nadia forwarded photos. Scholarship girls at Tulane. Notebooks in hand. Echoing Elena's ghost with glee. "Legacy lives," her note read. Morgan replied with photos of them. Alex mid-laugh. Wineglass raised, join us next time. The drive home wound through Sonoma's valleys. Golden with autumn. The city reappearing like a prodigal. Back in the loft. Unpacked bags yielded to routine. Alex's book proposal submitted to agents. Morgan's consultations booked. Advising queer startups in the Castro. Ethics audits for Boston firms. Evenings wove domesticity. Cooking classes via Zoom. Salsa nights at El Rio. Hips swaying to congas. Sweat slick and alive. Challenges lingered. Soft-edged. Harlan retired. A quiet handover. New board leaned progressive. Voslink's metrics their North Star. Derek's appeal dragged. But therapy, joint sessions with a queer counselor and no unpacked residues. Alex voicing fears of enmeshment. Morgan her imposter echoes. "We're works in progress," the therapist affirmed. And they left lighter. Hands linked down Valencia's mosaic sidewalks. Winter crept. Holidays a tapestry. Thanksgiving in New Orleans with Nadia. Jazz funerals for Elena morphing to second lines of joy. Morgan and Alex dancing streets sticky with beignet sugar. Nadia's locks flying. Christmas in Vermont. Snow blanketing the retreat. Fireside readings of Lord and Baldwin. Gifts unwrapped slow. Alex's locket etched with bridges. Morgan's journal cover stamped our code. Spring bloomed renewal. Voslink hit 50,000 users. A summit in San Francisco drawing hundreds. Panels on queer futures in tech. Elena's story keynote. Morgan and Alex co-presented. Slides blending code with poetry. Audience wrapped. Post-talk. A young coder approached. "You made me believe I could build without breaking." Tears pricked. Later. In a Mission Alley bar. They toasted with mezcal. The burned ceiling gratitude. Intimacy evolved. Layered. Lazy Sundays in bed. Exploring with toys from a Castro shop. Laughter mingling with moans. Quiet nights tracing scars. Alex's faded soccer bruises. Morgan's emotional etchings. "I see you," Alex would whisper. Fingers gentle. Bodies merging in symphonies of trust. One fog-laced morning. Atop Twin Peaks. City sprawling below. Morgan knelt. Not with rings, too conventional, but a vial of Gulf sand from Elena's bayou. mixed with jade from their cove. Will you build forever with me? Alex's yes was a sob. Embrace fierce. The world blurring to their pulse. Years folded. The loft traded for a Portland craftsman. Rain pattering roofs as Voslink globalized. Notes in Mexico City. Manila. Alex's book hit shelves. A bestseller etching their story in ink. Morgan's firm thrived. Small but seismic. Nadia visited often. A chosen aunt. Her laughter filling halls. In quiet moments, Alex's head in lap by the Willamette. Fingers carding silver-threaded curls, Morgan reflected. The fortune built on lies had crumbled. But from rubble rose riches uncountable. Love. Not ledgers, truth. Not thrones. Elena's bridge spanned. Not in code alone. But in the lives it linked there's most of all. And in that span, they walked, hand in hand, toward horizons endless.